Imagine a world, your world, our world, the world you grew up on and shared countless experiences with people. Now imagine your home. Chances are you live in an area that will be significantly impacted by global warming in the near future. Micronesia is gone, sunk beneath the waves. Pakistan and South India have been abandoned. Most of North and South America are uninhabitable, and Europe is slowly turning into a desert. This is the world, according to researchers at Big Think, 4 degrees Celsius warmer than it is now.
They ask you how you are, you just have to say that you're fine when you're not really fine, but you just can't get into it because they would never understand.
On behalf of Scotland, I agree that climate change is both caused by humans and detrimental to our planet. I do agree that the proposed solution applies rather perfectly to our situation. This is our chance to change our fate, and we could do so while living our lives as usual.
Well, what are we going to do in the next 50 or 100 years when countries like the United States, who are the high producer of CO2, continues to emit at the same rate or even higher? And all we're here is to face the same problem again.
Here we are in an IPCC board meeting. The Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change meets to discuss the effects of and possible solutions to climate change. At the moment, they have left the topic of decreasing emissions to move on to discussing geoengineering. The idea that humans can engineer ways to remove CO2 from the atmosphere, reversing the effects of climate change. Germany raises a good question. If people and corporations are able to keep on doing what they're doing, creating tons and tons of CO2, then what is there to say that we won't end up needing to apply geoengineering indefinitely? Oh, more and more rapidly every time.
Currently, the methods we have right now under the topic of geoengineering are effective but incredibly slow. Forestation takes too long, and storing CO2 underground is limited. Research could go into finding better methods, but since there's no full commitment to take action, not much is being done. However, there are other known methods that may work. One example is cloud seeding, putting chemicals, however bad for the environment, in the atmosphere, such as silver iodide, to help form clouds. Clouds both block heat from the sun and produce rain, which helps more plants to grow. Most other methods include blocking some of the sun's radiation to physically cool the earth, whether it be cloud brightening or putting reflective materials in space is up in the air. These methods are incredibly risky and expensive, so it'll take a lot to get them approved and paid for.
Overall, geoengineering takes time. We might be able to fix the problem for a decade or two, but it will only arise again as we continue to produce more and more greenhouse gases and continue harming the environment. This is only a band-aid for a gushing wound, and we should really try to stop the bleeding first. Ms. Irwin also brings up a good point. Geoengineering is incredibly expensive. Not only that, but many methods can have a direct impact on our economy.
The sector most vulnerable to climate risk is agriculture. Although agriculture accommodates a small proportion of the U.S. economy, the effect of climate change can be huge locally. There are about a dozen states in the Midwest relying heavily on agriculture currently suffering. Extreme rainfall events have increased 37% in the Midwest since the 1950s. Many fields have washed away and livestock have drowned. Nebraska alone lost $440 million worth of cattle, and as of March, Iowa had suffered $1.6 billion in losses. In addition to flooding, increased heat and drought will likely reduce crop yields. For every Celsius the global thermostat rises, there will be a 5 to 15% increase in overall crop production. Keep in mind that many commodity crops such as corn, soybean, wheat, and cotton do not grow well above certain temperature thresholds. And there is more to this. Crops will be affected by less availability of water and groundwater, increased pests and weeds along with fire risk. As farmers struggle to stay afloat by finding ways to adapt to changing conditions, prices will likely increase and pass along to customers.
Imagine the blows major corporations would take if we just stopped current production and projects, or the inconvenience for the population of people who use those products. The economic plunges some countries would take was set too far back to start making changes to make things more sustainable. This honestly could have been dealt with years ago, but people thought they could just sweep it under the rug.
But global warming will help my country's dying economy. Opportunities will open up in the north as more land will be farmable, leave China and America to continue to innovate technology and allow us to have fresh farmland. I don't see why America's economy would be at stake if most of their money comes from big corporations.
Yeah, and some of the methods proposed have negative effects. Cloud seeding affects farmers by changing weather patterns.
As you can see, there are also some negative effects that can stem from putting an end to climate change.
Negative effects? Negative effects? Who cares about farmers and the economy when the earth is in danger? Animals are going extinct. You see this little guy? He'll lose his habitat because of stupid humans.
Extinction is forever.
NANI?! I don't know what just happened there, but clearly there are plenty of issues with geoengineering. It may seem like we have stumbled upon a perfect solution to climate change, but many people beg to differ. Here to talk to you about the ethics of geoengineering is Linda Glenn, America's leading ethicist, futurist, professor at university. Oh, ow, my face! What are you doing? Oh crap. Watch out, it's slippery. Got him.
It's okay. Oh, okay.
I think we lost him. Anyway, look, utilitarianism, a consequentialist ethical framework that attempts to maximize happiness and minimize suffering for the maximum number of people, would suggest the human race has an ethical obligation to do everything it can to prevent the collapse of ecosystems, meaning that geoengineering and more coercive Thanos-type methods of conservation are not only most definitely in the cards, geoengineering would be in the metaphorical hand we should play. Otherwise, we are, in the long run, severely impacting future generations with damaged ecosystems, minimized biodiversity, and polluted, sparse, drinkable water, decreasing their happiness and increasing their suffering. No notes for utilitarians.
There you are. Hey!
Slippery when wet. Got him. I think I bought myself another minute. Deontology, a non-consequentialist ethical framework that focuses on treating every person as equal, rational beings who mustn't be treated as means to an end, but instead an end in themselves. This framework, on the other hand, would argue that people should only conserve as much as they could without it impacting their happiness, which may or may not be against geoengineering, depending on the type, but is definitely against the more coercive Thanos-type measures that some utilitarians may opt for. In this framework, to justify subjecting people to the negatives of geoengineering, there would have to be a unanimous global consent to geoengineer the atmosphere. Hey! He's back again!
Many people say our planet is doomed. Some believe there is nothing wrong. Yet most people believe we have the power to stop global warming. Geoengineering our Earth to have a healthier atmosphere is definitely a possibility, despite its logistical, economic, and ethical issues. But regardless of how we save our planet, there is no question that we need to. Unfortunately, in America's government, it is hard enough to push this kind of legislation on, and we would need a majority decision by all the world's governments in order to make any drastic changes. Still, it is absolutely possible to make a change in the world, any way we can, and we must.